I stepped through the front doors of the lake house, the same one I once scrubbed, painted, cried inside, only to feel like I was walking into a stranger's Airbnb. The warm lighting, the overpriced charcuterie boards, the floral arrangements bigger than my entire kitchen table. None of it felt like anything I'd ever owned. And yet technically, once upon a time, it all belonged to me. My 60-year-old knees cracked louder than the music as I crossed the polished hardwood floors. Folks barely looked up. A few offered those fake little, "Oh hey, didn't see you there," smiles, the kind people give out of obligation, not affection. They didn't even pause their conversations. I was background noise. Wallpaper. A glitch in their perfect party aesthetic. Eben finally noticed me. Or maybe he just noticed that his guests noticed me. He walked over with that tight, embarrassed half-smile he always wore when I showed up anywhere he'd rather I didn't. "Mom, hey. You made it," he said, voice flat, eyes already scanning the crowd like he had better places to be. "Of course I made it," I said softly. "It's my birthday." Yeah, right." He scratched the back of his neck, the way he always did when he didn't want to talk. "Just try to relax, okay? Don't, fuss around. Right. Don't fuss. Don't talk too loud. Don't exist in a way that inconveniences anyone. I got the memo years ago." I walked deeper into the room, passing clusters of guests who chatted like I wasn't even there. Someone muttered, "She's early," like I couldn't hear. Another whispered, "Let's hope it doesn't get weird this year." Their words stuck to me like cold rain. I adjusted the strap on my purse, pretending I didn't hear a thing. The music shifted to some upbeat pop song I didn't recognize. Eben grabbed a drink from a passing tray and clinked glasses with friends who looked more like his adopted family than I ever did. Watching him laugh with them, laugh in that easy way he never did with me, was a quiet punch to the ribs. "Mom, just hang out for a bit," he said over his shoulder. Not turning. Not stopping. Just tossing the words behind him like crumbs. The painful part wasn't what he said. It was what he didn't. No hug. No birthday wish. Not even a, "You look nice tonight." As I stood there, soaking in the chilly atmosphere that used to be my home, a sinking realization settled deep in my chest. I wasn't a guest at my own birthday party. I was the inconvenience everyone hoped wouldn't stay long. I should have left right then, right when it hit me that I didn't belong in the house I once mopped barefoot at midnight. But instead, I did what I've done my whole life. I tried to make myself useful. Quiet. Helpful. Invisible. The party got louder by the minute. Music bumping, people laughing too hard at jokes that weren't funny, liquor flowing like somebody opened a fire hydrant. It smelled like perfume, cheap beer, and a whole lot of privilege I didn't recognize. Before I knew it, a half-eaten plate got shoved in my hands. Then someone called, "Hey, could you grab more napkins?" Another waved a drink at me like I was staff. And I, fool that I am, did it. Picked up plates, cleared cups, wiped counters. Didn't even think. Muscle memory of a lifetime spent serving people who never looked twice at me. I caught Eben watching me from across the room, jaw tight. Not in concern, in irritation. Like I was messing up the vibe he'd curated. Like my existence didn't fit the color scheme. "Mom," he hissed when he walked by me, barely moving his lips. "Chill, okay? Stop acting weird." Weird. Right. Because being helpful is embarrassing now. I forced a smile, kept cleaning. A little kid ran past, bumped my elbow, and I dropped a wine glass off the table's edge. It hit the hardwood and shattered like a tiny explosion. The music didn't stop, but the conversations did. Heads turned. Eyes landed on me like I'd pulled a gun instead of a glass. "Oh, for Mom." Eben stormed over, running a hand down his face like he couldn't believe the universe had cursed him with me. "Can you not? Seriously, what is wrong with you tonight?" I opened my mouth to apologize, but the words got stuck somewhere behind my ribs. A girl near him whispered, "Is she drunk?" Another murmured, "Does she always do this?" My cheeks burned hot enough to light the room. Eben raised his voice, not just loud, but loud, the kind meant to humiliate. "Everyone's sick of you," he snapped, throwing his hands up. You make everything a damn hassle. The whole room froze. The DJ, the guests, the kid holding a slice of cake mid-bite. Everyone just stared. The silence was so sharp it could have cut open my chest. A strange calm washed over me then. Not sadness. Not anger. Something quieter. Heavier. Like a door inside me creaked open after years of being nailed shut. I crouched to gather the glass pieces, each shard reflecting my shaking hands. Nobody helped. Nobody even breathed. When I stood up, the world felt tilted. Something inside me, something old, something tired, shifted so hard it might have cracked. I looked at my son. Not the boy I raised, but the man he'd become. And I realized, this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a bad moment. This was who he was now. I wiped my palms on my dress, lifted my chin, and walked toward the microphone stand at the front of the room. If they wanted a show, they were about to get one. The room didn't breathe as I walked toward the small stage, heels clicking slow and steady across the polished floor. You could have heard a mosquito sneeze in that silence. Eben was frozen behind me, hand half raised like he wanted to grab my arm but was too scared of making things worse, or maybe too scared of what I might say. Either way, I didn't stop. I stepped up onto the low platform, my dress swishing like it had finally remembered it was supposed to belong to a woman, not a servant. The microphone sat on its stand, innocent and waiting. My fingers closed around it, and for a second, the whole world felt suspended, like even gravity was holding its breath. When I spoke, my voice came out calm. Too calm. The kind of calm people hear before a storm they know damn well they can't outrun. Well, I said, letting my gaze sweep across the room, seems like my birthday wishes came early. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. Someone else whispered, "Oh God." Eben muttered under his breath, "Mom, don't. Please don't do this." But oh, I was already doing it. You know, I said lightly, I wasn't sure I'd make it tonight. Thought maybe this year I'd keep it quiet. But turns out quiet never really kept me safe. That got their attention real fast. Heads tilted. Ears perked. Even the tipsy lady in the sparkly dress blinked awake. I've spent a long time playing small, I continued. A long time cleaning up messes I didn't make. Holding secrets that weren't mine to carry. Smiling when I should have screamed. Someone near the back murmured, "What's she talking about?" "Life's funny," I went on, my tone sweet as iced tea but sharp as the glass I just picked up off the floor. People always assume the quiet ones don't see anything. But trust me, we see everything. A ripple ran through the guests, a mix of curiosity, fear, and that guilty shuffle people get when they think their name's about to show up in the preacher's sermon. I let the silence stretch. Just a beat. Enough to tighten the rope. "Anyway," I said, smiling like this was all part of the birthday program, "I figured tonight I'd tell a little story. Something honest. Something real." Eben stepped forward. "Mom, stop." But the room wasn't looking at him anymore. They were locked on me. And then, just as I drew in a breath to continue, I noticed someone standing in the doorway. A man. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in jeans and a simple jacket. Not party clothes. He wasn't holding a drink, wasn't chatting, wasn't pretending to blend in. He was watching. Focused. Eyes sharp enough to slice through the tension like a razor. Detective Rowan Hale. Not on duty, but that didn't matter. Cops have a way of smelling trouble before anyone else notices the smoke. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just studied me like he already knew I was about to drop something heavy. I lifted the microphone again. Pulse steady, voice steady. "Let me start at the beginning," I said. "Because tonight, everything changes." A hush fell so thick it felt like the room might split open. And that's exactly where the truth began to crack. I held the microphone a little tighter, feeling the weight of every stare in the room. Rowan Hale was still in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes narrowed like he'd already connected dots no one else could see. Eben hovered near the stage, pale and sweating, like he knew exactly which memory I was about to pull out of the grave. "Thing about birthdays," I said slowly, "is they make you think about the years behind you, and the ones people tried real hard to erase. A murmured ripple drifted through the crowd. I smiled. Soft. Tired. Dangerous. You all know my husband, God rest his soul, died in a boating accident. Tragic. Sudden. That's the version folks like to repeat. Someone near the front whispered, "Wait, what's she implying?" I ignored them. "But accidents don't keep you up at night," I continued. "Accidents don't leave scratches on your wrists that you hide under long sleeves. Accidents don't make a grown woman jump every time a door closes too fast." Rowan's gaze sharpened. Eben froze like he'd turned to stone. And I breathed in the truth I'd swallowed for 20 years. My marriage wasn't this picture-perfect love story folks think it was. My husband, he had a temper. And that temper, it didn't stay in the walls of our house. It followed me. It broke things. Sometimes it broke me. Gasps scattered through the room. People shifted, suddenly unsure if they should be standing here hearing this. "But here's the thing," I said, lowering my voice, leaning into the mic like I was confessing to God himself. "The night he died, he wasn't alone." Eben's eyes flew wide. "Mom, don't. Not here." "You were there," I said quietly, turning toward him. "You remember." The room went dead silent. Eben stepped back like I'd slapped him. "You're confused," he said, voice shaking. "You don't know what you're saying." "Oh, sweetheart." I tilted my head. "I know exactly what I'm saying." My mind flashed back, hard and fast, like film burning through an old projector. A younger me standing on the dock, shaking. My husband yelling, stumbling drunk. Eben on the shore, screaming for him to stop. Water splashing. Loud. Violent. A moment of stillness that felt like the world split in half. And then the lie they fed everyone. Rowan took a step closer to the crowd, sliding in just enough to listen better. "Truth is," I said, "the police never heard the full story. They heard what they were meant to hear. The safe version. The version that protected everyone except me." People stared at Eben now, not me. And that's when I finally noticed her, standing behind him. Mara. Pretty girl, always so put together. Tonight her makeup couldn't hide the panic creeping over her face. She clutched Eben's arm like she wasn't sure whether to steady him, or herself. Her eyes darted from me to Rowan, then back to the floor. She knew something. She knew a lot. "Funny thing about secrets," I said. "They don't stay buried forever. Especially not the ones tied to death." Rowan leaned forward slightly, his attention locked on Mara now, like he'd just spotted the weakest link in the room. "And tonight," I said, lowering the mic just enough to make every guest lean in, "we're done burying things." The room tightened, breath held, waiting for whatever came next. The air in the room felt thick enough to chew after my last line from the stage. People stood stiff, gripping their drinks like props in a bad play. Eben looked like he wanted to pull the fire alarm just to shut me up. Mara looked like she'd seen a ghost. Rowan Hale, still leaning near the door, watched me like I'd started peeling back the wallpaper to reveal a hidden crime scene. I lifted the mic again, slow and steady. "You know," I said, my voice cool as iced coffee, "marriage teaches you a lot about what love is, and what it definitely ain't." A couple guests exchanged awkward glances. Someone whispered, "Oh hell, she's not done." "No yelling tonight," I said with a soft laugh. "Not from me. I'm past yelling. I'm at that age where truth sounds better whispered." Rowan raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "The truth is," I continued, "I wasn't always alone in that marriage. There was someone who showed me kindness when kindness was in short supply. Someone who reminded me I wasn't crazy for wanting peace." A ripple shot through the crowd. Eben stiffened. "Mom," he said sharply, "stop twisting things. You're upset. You're remembering wrong." I tilted my head. "Honey, I remember plenty." I could almost hear Mara's heartbeat from across the room. "I had a friend," I said. "A man who treated me like I mattered. He wasn't some fling. He wasn't some silly crush. He was the one person who looked at me and didn't see a punching bag." Gasps. Someone muttered, Oh, damn. Someone else whispered. Was she cheating? I held up a hand. Before y'all start writing your own novella. I didn't cheat. I didn't cross that line. But love. I let the word hang in the air. Love doesn't always keep its hands to itself. Sometimes it grows in the cracks where bruises hide. Rowan's eyes sharpened. He knew this wasn't just romance gossip. This was motive territory. And here's the part none of you know, I said calmly. My husband. He suspected. He thought I'd stepped out on him. Thought Eben wasn't his. The room collectively sucked in a breath. Eben stumbled back. What? Mom, what are you even saying? I'm saying, I replied gently. Your father spent years convincing himself you weren't truly his. Not because of anything I did, but because of how deeply he hated the idea that I could be loved by someone else. Eben shook his head. That's a lie. Is it? I asked. Because you were old enough to hear the arguments. You were old enough to remember that night by the boathouse. Old enough to know more than you've ever admitted. His face cracked, right down the middle. Every muscle in his jaw trembled. You don't get to do this, he snapped. Not in front of everyone. Rowan stepped forward, not aggressive, but with that quiet authority cops are born with. Let her talk, he said. She's not rambling. She's building something. Eben glared at him. Who the hell invited you? Rowan ignored him completely. His gaze stayed on me. Imara, he said softly. Go on. I took a breath. Deep. Heavy. Final. The secret they buried with my marriage, I said, didn't stay buried. It left trails. Paper trails. Threats. Evidence. The crowd murmured again. And some of it, I added, narrowing my eyes toward the dessert table where Mara stood frozen, is still right here in this room. Her hand twitched, just enough for Rowan to catch it. The room was still buzzing from the confession that slipped out in Chapter 5, the kind of confession that doesn't just raise eyebrows, it detonates families. Eben was shaking, Rowan was watching him like a hawk, and I could see Mara clinging to her fiancé's arm like she was hanging off a cliff. But then something small, something damn near invisible, shifted. Mara's eyes flicked toward the dessert table. Not in a casual "oh I want cake" way. No. It was quick. Nervous. Guilty. And the way Rowan's head snapped to follow that tiny glance? Yeah. He caught it too. Before Eben finished stammering whatever excuse he was cooking up, Mara stepped away from him, pretending she needed a napkin. Her heels clicked too fast, too sharp, as she slipped behind the dessert table piled with pastries and that overpriced bakery cake. I watched her bend down like she was tying her shoe. But her hand wasn't on her heel. It was reaching under the tablecloth. Rowan took 2 slow, casual steps. Cop steps. Hands in his pockets, eyes on everything. He wasn't buying the sudden shoe emergency for one damn second. I narrowed my gaze. She wasn't tying anything. She was hiding something. A second later, I saw it. Just a glimpse of brown paper in her hand before she shoved it underneath the cake table like she was planting a bomb and praying no one noticed. Too late. Sweetheart. Rowan cleared his throat. Quiet. Firm. Hey, Mara. You want to tell me what that is? Her whole body froze. If fear had a sound, it would have been the silence coming off that girl. I don't know what you mean, she said, standing up too fast, brushing imaginary dust off her dress. I was just, my shoe strap came loose. Funny, Rowan said, 'cause you weren't touching your shoe. Eben blinked at her, confused and terrified. Mara, what did you just put under there? She shook her head, backing up like the air around us was radioactive. Nothing. I swear, just leave it alone, okay? But Rowan didn't leave things alone. That's literally his whole job. He crouched down, lifted the tablecloth, and reached under. Mara gasped like he'd stuck his hand in a snake pit. Don't! Too late. He pulled out the brown envelope, worn edges, taped corners, the kind of thing that's been handled too many times. My heart stuttered. I knew envelopes like that. I'd gotten one once. Years ago. A letter that shook me so badly I burned it. Rowan held it up. This yours? Mara swallowed hard. Rowan, please, don't open that. But he was already sliding a finger under the flap. Papers spilled out, old bank statements, copies of checks, scribbled threats, and one letter. A letter with my name on it. Handwriting I hadn't seen in years. Ugly handwriting. Recognizable handwriting. My husband's ex-business partner. The man who'd always lurked behind the lies. Eben's face drained of color. Mara, why do you have that? Where did you get those papers? She trembled, mascara smudging. I didn't want it to come out like this. I was trying to protect us. Protect you. Rowan looked from her to me, then back to the envelope like it was a loaded weapon. This isn't just family drama anymore, he murmured. This is evidence. My pulse hammered. I suddenly felt the past clawing its way back up through the floorboards. The second Rowan lifted that brown envelope, the entire energy in the room flipped. Folks weren't just uncomfortable now, they were spooked. Like they'd just realized they weren't at a birthday party anymore. They were witnesses. Rowan skimmed the pages, jaw tightening. These aren't just old bills, he murmured. These are threats. Financial coercion. Someone's been leaning on this family for a long time. I didn't need to look. I already knew the handwriting. I knew the tone behind every word. Samuel Gray. My husband's business partner. The puppet master behind 20 years of hell. I stepped closer to the mic, but my voice didn't need help carrying now. The room was so silent it felt padded. Since we're laying everything out tonight, I said quietly, let's talk about the man who controlled us all. Samuel Gray. My husband's so-called best friend. People shifted, whispering like they were afraid his name alone could summon him. He wasn't some mentor, I continued. He was a vulture. The kind who smells weakness and decides it's a damn buffet. Eben's head dropped into his hands. Mara wiped her eyes. Rowan listened like he was already building a case file in his mind. Samuel had my husband wrapped around his finger, I said. Convinced him he was the brains, the backbone, the only reason our business was thriving. And when my marriage started crumbling, Samuel didn't help, he lit the match. Rowan lifted a page. These threaten freezing accounts, seizing assets. Blackmail, I said. Heavy blackmail. Samuel had leverage, and he used it every chance he got. Eben finally snapped. Not angrily, just broken. Mom, he whispered, voice hoarse. I didn't know what to do. The room stilled. Eben lifted his head, eyes bloodshot. He wouldn't leave us alone. He said Dad owed him, said he'd destroy us if I talked. Every time I tried to tell you anything, he'd show up. My stomach twisted. I'd suspected Samuel was involved. But hearing it from my own son cracked something in me. You were a kid, I said gently. I should have seen it. Eben shook his head violently. No. He threatened me. Said if I told the truth about that night at the boathouse, he'd make sure you paid the price. He'd whisper it in my ear every time he visited Dad. I was terrified, Mom. I thought he'd kill you. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Rowan moved closer. Eben, what truth are we talking about? Eben's breath hitched. Dad didn't slip. He didn't trip. Samuel was there. He was the last one with him. The words landed like a blunt force hit. Rowan's entire posture changed. This was no longer drama. This was criminal. So Samuel Gray manipulated your father financially, Rowan said slowly, threatened your mother, and coerced you into keeping quiet. Eben nodded miserably. He told me to stick to the story, said, accidents happen, and if I wanted my family to stay alive, I'd better repeat it. My hands trembled, but my voice didn't. And he still has leverage, doesn't he? That's why this envelope was hidden. Mara sobbed. He said he'd ruin us. He said he'd take everything. I didn't know what else to do. Rowan exhaled, long and controlled. This isn't family drama, he said, eyes turning dark. This is a decades-long criminal operation. And if Samuel Gray thinks he's untouchable. He held up the envelope like a badge. He's about to find out he isn't. The room felt like it was holding its breath after Rowan declared Samuel Gray wasn't untouchable. The truth wasn't creeping out anymore. It was sprinting. And the closer it got, the more Eben shook. Rowan turned to him. "There's one thing I need," he said. "The boathouse security footage from the night your father died." That hit harder than a slap. Eben's head jerked up, eyes wide like a deer in headlights. "And no," he stuttered. There isn't any. The cameras were old. They malfunctioned. The tape got messed up." Rowan cut him off with a look. "I've heard every excuse in the book, son. That ain't new." Eben backed up, palms out like he needed the air around him to stop closing in. "I swear, Rowan, the footage is gone. It doesn't exist anymore." Mara's face crumpled. She wasn't good at lying. Not tonight. Not in front of all this truth. "Mara," Rowan said, voice low but sharp. She swallowed. Hard. "Eben, we can't keep doing this." His head snapped toward her. "Mara, stop." But she wasn't stopping. "I found something," she whispered. "In your old dresser. A USB drive. I didn't know what it was, so I plugged it into my laptop and it just kept glitching. The file was corrupted." Rowan raised a brow. "Corrupted how?" "It froze at the same spot," she said. "The footage cuts off at the exact moment your dad walks toward the dock. Then it jumps. 2 minutes missing. Just gone." Eben ran a hand through his hair. Frantic. "I deleted it. I shouldn't have even kept the damn thing." "You kept it because you couldn't let it go," I interrupted, stepping forward. "Because even lies get heavy after 20 years. He looked at me, tears forming. "Mom, please don't." But I wasn't done. "You're right," I said softly. "The USB is corrupted. But the boathouse had a second system. Old, dusty VHS backup. Your father and I installed it before you were even in middle school." Eben blinked like I'd just spoken another language. Rowan straightened. "You're telling me there's a VHS copy?" "Yes," I replied. "And it didn't malfunction. It didn't skip. It didn't lose those 2 minutes." The room erupted in whispers. Eben stumbled forward. "Mom, why would you keep that? Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because those 2 minutes," I said, voice trembling but steady, "would have destroyed you." He sagged, defeated. Rowan's voice dropped. "Imara, do you still have the tape?" "I do," I said. "Locked away." "Where?" "My house," I replied. "Behind the old sewing machine. I prayed nobody would ever need to see it." Mara wiped her eyes. "What's on it?" I looked at her, then at everyone watching me like their whole reality depended on my next sentence. "Everything," I said. "The whole truth. The yelling. The struggle. The moment someone else stepped onto that dock." Rowan's jaw tightened. "Then it's time we watch it." Rowan dimmed the lights, and suddenly the whole room felt like a courtroom. Nobody talked. Nobody even shifted. It was the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. The projector hummed as he hooked up the ancient VHS player I'd kept hidden for 2 decades. "All right," Rowan said, remote in hand. "Nobody freak out. This footage is old-school grainy, but the truth don't age." The screen flickered. Static. A warped timestamp. Then, there it was. The boathouse. 20 years younger. 20 years colder. A few guests gasped when a teenage Eben appeared at the edge of the dock. Skinny, scared, shoulders hunched like the whole world already weighed on him. His dad, my husband, paced back and forth, yelling. Then Samuel Gray stepped into the frame. Even through the fuzzy tape, his presence oozed wrong. Eben's breath hitched beside me. He looked like he wanted to run straight out of his own skin. On the screen, Samuel got right up in my husband's face, jabbing a finger in his chest. The audio was trash, just crackling, but you didn't need sound to understand that man's rage. He was talking big, threatening big. That smug, Calculated hostility carried through the screen. The guests leaned forward as if hypnotized. My husband shoved him. Samuel shoved harder. Eben stepped between them, young, shaking, trying, begging. On the footage, my husband swung an arm toward the kid. Samuel grabbed him, yanked him back, and shoved him again. Then it happened. In one sharp motion, Samuel pushed my husband straight off the dock. Not hard, not dramatic, just a cold, controlled shove. The splash echoed through the speakers. A woman in the back covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "Jesus Christ." On screen, Eben panicked. He didn't freeze, he didn't run. He dove in after his father like a kid who didn't care if he drowned trying. He fought the current. He reached out. He pulled. He screamed, silent on the tape, but loud enough that I could still hear the echo in my memory. He failed. My husband slipped under. The water swallowed him whole. When Eben resurfaced, Samuel wasn't helping. He wasn't calling for help. He wasn't even shocked. He just stood there, watching, calculating. Rowan paused the tape. The room had gone dead. I could feel every heart crack at once, especially Eben's. He looked like he might collapse. "That," Rowan said quietly, "isn't an accident." Eben finally broke. Tears fell fast, no shame, no attempt to wipe them. "He blamed me," he choked out. "Samuel told me I messed everything up. Said if I opened my mouth, he'd finish what he started. Said he'd come for Mom next. I was 16. 16. His voice cracked on that last word. Even the guests who didn't like me swallowed hard. I walked toward him, slow, steady. "Baby," I whispered. "You tried to save him. You did what no one else did." He shook his head violently. "I almost drowned." He pulled me out, then told me if I told you the truth, you'd die next. I believed him. Rowan didn't sugarcoat anything. "Samuel used you," he said. "He groomed your fear." Classic predator move. The footage still hung frozen behind us, Samuel's silhouette standing at the edge of the dock like a monster carved from the night. The frozen frame of Samuel on the projector felt like it was staring down every soul in the room. Eben's breath shook, his shoulders twitching like his body couldn't decide whether to scream or collapse. Then he turned toward me, eyes red, glassy, barely holding on. "Mom," he whispered, voice scraped raw. I can't carry it anymore." I stepped closer, slow and careful, like approaching a wounded animal. His whole life he'd acted tough, stubborn, untouchable. But in that moment, he looked 14 again. Scared, shaking, lost in a world too big for him. He dropped to his knees. People gasped. Someone cried softly. Rowan didn't move. He understood this kind of break. "Mom," Eben choked, hands clutching mine. He owned me. Samuel owned my whole damn life. I felt Mara's sob from across the room. Eben kept going, words tumbling out like they'd been held back by barbed wire. "He took the house. Said Dad owed him. Said if I didn't sign those papers, he'd revisit old business. And I knew what that meant. I knew he was talking about you." His voice cracked. "So I signed everything. I handed over the house you built with Dad. I gave it all to him." My heart split clean down the center. "He made me rely on him," Eben said. "Every job offer, he blocked it. Every loan, denied. Every chance I had to start over, gone. He kept me broke on purpose. Kept me scared." Rowan nodded once. "Financial isolation. Classic control tactic." Eben wiped his face, shaking harder now. And then he put Mara under his thumb. Told her if she didn't keep an eye on me, he'd leak some fake tax fraud crap and destroy us both. "That envelope," he pointed shakily toward the dessert table. He made her hold on to it. Said it was leverage. Insurance. Mara stepped forward, voice trembling. I didn't know what else to do. I thought if we just kept quiet, he'd eventually leave us alone. Rowan scoffed softly. "Men like Samuel don't retire from evil. They die in it." Eben pulled me closer, forehead pressed against my stomach like when he was little. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so damn sorry. I thought I was protecting you. I thought if I kept quiet, you'd be safe. I stroked his hair. My voice came out soft but sturdy. Baby, you were a child when this started. A child Samuel hunted. He trapped you, not the other way around. He sobbed harder. I just want it to stop. I want him gone. I want my life back. You will get it back, I whispered. Tonight's the beginning. Rowan stepped toward the front door, pulling out his phone. I'm calling it in, he said, tone dark and decisive. Samuel Gray's been running unchecked for too damn long. Not tonight. He walked outside, shutting the door behind him. The cold night air swept in for half a second. Sharp, chilling, final. Inside, Eben clung to me like he was finally letting go of 20 years of fear. And outside,